these guys, they'll tell you, I'm like a kid at Christmas. The coffee man has meant so much to my life, and I've come around and shared it with a lot of people, and we're just very thankful to have you with us today. And I'm going to turn it over, and the floor is yours.
All right, man, I appreciate it. Hey, y'all put your hands together for Coach Perry. I feel like he is Coach Perry, man. Perry is such a great place. Y'all, first of all, Coach Smith, I'm going to tell you how this all happened. Because it's a great lesson in life. It's about putting yourself out there. Because if you don't ever put yourself out there, then you won't know what you're capable of. This man just messaged me on Twitter one time. Just messaged me on the blue, hey, I'd love to get you to come out here and speak to Perry. And when people do that, I respond to that. Because I do that too. I do that in life. In fact, I'll tell you a story at the end about the time I did that changed my life. But you have to be willing to put in the work. Because if you're not willing to put in the work, then you're never going to know what you were capable of. And so when he told me what they're doing out here at Perry with the coffee meeting, and how this message is spread, I was like, I got to get out to Perry. I got to get out to Perry and see this for myself. And I'm going to tell you something. From everything I've seen and heard back from everybody I've met today, I'm blown away with what y'all are doing with this message. This message about being a coffee bean, it's a universal message, and it's a message that tells us that no matter what is going on around us, we have a choice of how we're going to respond to that. So I'm going to tell you the backstory to all that today. I'm going to tell you my story about finding the opportunity in extreme adversity. There's two kinds of adversity you're going to face in life. There's the kind of adversity that you find yourself in with the choices that you make. Then there's the kind of adversity that you find yourself in because life just puts it on you, and life is hard, y'all. Right now, this football season, I was talking to Coach this morning. We were at Chick-fil-A having breakfast. I was talking to Coach, and he was telling me that y'all recently had a loss, right? Y'all lost one game. Now you're dependent on some other things happening with some other teams to win out this district or have a three-way tie, right? Tell you a story about a guy who had the same problem one time. 2016, Damon, I was talking to Damon a couple weeks ago. And he was telling me about the team that he's got right now. He's in a rebuilding year right now. But he said, Damon, I feel really good about the team. He said, but you know what team gave me the most headaches, gave me the most stress? That 2016 National Championship team. Deshaun Watson was quarterback. He said, man, that team had all this talent, but they would make some mistakes here and there. You know, they started thinking they really belong, and then they went and played Pittsburgh in 2016, the University of Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh beat them in the regular season. They had one loss that year, and they won the national championship. But they lost to Pittsburgh. And now, the rest of the season, they got really serious. And now they were relying upon other teams in America actually losing to keep them in one of those top four spots to be in the national championship playoff. And it worked out for them because they won the national championship. They beat Alabama that year for the national championship. So where you are right now is where a lot of other great teams have been, but you've got to step it up. Yeah, you got humbled in one game, but you've got to keep your pace of play up and just rely on that. So look, let me start the story off. 13 years ago, July 30th, 2008, I was sitting around this little rundown apartment in Dallas, and I was sitting on this little backyard couch, and I've got my meth dealer sitting next to me, this guy named Tex. Now, 13 years ago, I'm not this clean-cut looking guy you see in front of you today. I'm a full-blown meth addict. I'm the head of an organized crime ring in Dallas. And so I'm sitting there smoking meth with Tex, and I'm telling Tex, I think the end is near. I think the cops are about to close in on me. 10 days before this guy that I was doing all these burglaries within Dallas, this guy named Dustin, had been picked up by the Dallas Police Department over a stolen car. So I know it's just a matter of time before they get to me. And just as I pass that pipe back to Tex, I heard a window shatter off to my right. And tumbling across my living room floor was this little canister going end over end, and it's smoking on one side. Y'all, I've seen this movie before. I know what's about to go down in the living room. I tried to get out of there as fast as I could. Too late. Boom! The flashbang grenade went off right in my face. Bright light, loud noise, blows me back on the couch. And when I came to, when I could see and hear again, there's a cop standing over me in full SWAT right here. He's got his boot on my chest. The barrel of an assault rifle is digging in my eye socket. His fingers on the trigger, and this cop is screaming at the top of his lungs, "Don't move, don't move." Man, I looked at this cop and I blinked and I was like, man, don't worry, don't worry. So cops start flooding my apartment and one of them screams out, we got it. We got the Uptown Burger. The Uptown Burger. Yo, that's the consequences of my decisions. And let me tell you something. Consequences run with you for the rest of your life. The choices you make today will live with you for the rest of your life. You can't escape the consequences of your decision. It doesn't matter how many people's lives I could positively impact with this message, how many best-selling books are written, movies are made about the story I'm going to tell you today. I'll never escape that name, the Uptown Burger. About a dozen other meth addicts and myself, young and old, male and female, black and white, everything in between, because drugs and addiction do not discriminate. Let me say that again. Drugs and addiction do not discriminate. Addiction doesn't care who you are, who your mom and dad are, how much money you got, white, black. Addiction affects everybody the same way. But we, as a burglary crew, indiscriminately and without reservation, broke up the homes of dozens of people in the uptown neighborhood of Dallas to feed our insatiable meth habits. But on July 30th, 2008, the uptown burglaries, they came to an end because they had their man. They had the mastermind of the whole thing zipped out of the floor of that apartment. They took me to Dallas County Jail where they processed me in, fingerprints, mugshots, the works. They threw me in a holding cell that day. And I remember I spent the first 24 hours of my incarceration, really the next 10 months of my time in Dallas County Jail, with one thought going through my head. Getting out, getting high. That's all I cared about the whole time in Dallas County Jail. Fast forward, 10 months later, May 18th, 2009. I'm standing in front of a jury in Dallas County, and the jury in this trial has just listened to 6 days of overwhelming evidence of my guilt of the crime of engaging in organized criminal activity. And at the end of that 6-day trial, that jury had heard enough. That jury hated my guts, and I gave them all the reason in the world to hate me. And at the end of that trial, that jury went to deliberate. That means they went to think about my punishment for 10 minutes. 10 minutes, y'all. 10 minutes is not a long time to think about a punishment after a week of trial. And at the end of that 10-minute break, I came back in the courtroom, and the judge, who hadn't smiled the entire trial, he's grinning from ear to ear. He said, Damon Joseph West, you are hereby sentenced to 65 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. 65 years in Texas is a life sentence, y'all. A jury gave me life that day. Now, obviously, I didn't do the entire life sentence because I'm standing in front of you today in Perry, Georgia in 2021. I did 7 years and 3 months at a maximum security penitentiary in Beaumont, Texas, called the Mark Stiles Unit. And Stiles is one of the toughest prisons in Texas. It's one of the toughest prisons in America. And I know a lot about tough prisons in America because since I've been out of prison 6 years ago, I went back to school and got my master's in criminal justice. And today I'm a professor at the University of Houston downtown. I teach a class called Prisons in America. So I can tell you a lot about tough prisons. The Stiles is as tough as it gets. So it's 2015. I'm doing my time at Stiles. I've become a model inmate. I've become a coffee bean. And I'm working in the chapter. And the chaplain comes in one day and he is smiling. He's so happy. He said, Lance, they just called your name out over the radio. He said, parole is here to see you. Now, parole is what they can do to let you out of prison early, but you still serve your sentence on the street with supervision. He said, parole is here to see you, Wes. He said, they're calling your name out right now. He's excited about parole. I'm not. I don't think there's any chance I'm going to make my first parole in my life sentence. I figure I'll probably do 10, maybe 15 on this life sentence before they let me go home. But I go down to the parole office. I got a smile on my face because I'm a coffee bean. And I go in the office, I'm standing there, and the lady from parole says, sit down, Mr. West. So I sit down. And she's flipping through my file in front of her for about 20 seconds. Then she slams the file shut, she pushes it away. She said, Mr. West, I came here today to ask you one question. One question only. She said, we don't see a lot of people come through state prison like you, Mr. West. She said, you had everything going for your life, every advantage, every privilege, every opportunity. She said, but you blew through all of that. You became a drug addict, a criminal, and a thief. She said, the jury gave you life in prison for the things you did. She said, but Instead of letting that license define you, she said, you came to this prison in particular, and you changed yourself inside here. She said, but more importantly, you changed this entire prison around you. She said, so I've got one question for you today. She said, if you could be remembered for being anything in life, anything at all, she said, I want you to tell me what that would be in just one word. Go. Oh, man, you talk about an easy question for a coffee meeting? Man, I fired her answer back to her real quick, and I said, ma'am, useful. I just want to be useful. And I can be useful in this prison, or I can be useful out in that free world, finding those coffee meetings. November 16th, 2015, almost exactly 6 years ago from the day, I walked out of the Texas maximum security prison. Not necessarily a completely free man, because I'm on parole until the year 2073. Yeah, so I got a little time left for supervision, but I'm not worried about parole. The reason I'm not worried about parole is because I'm a coffee bean. As long as I'm a coffee bean, and the only way this coffee bean goes into a prison is when I walk in the front gates of those prisons and share this story with men and women all over American prisons to bring them hope in their journey. So before I tell you more about the coffee bean, let me tell you about me. Let me give you the backstory for the guy I have in front of you today in Perry, Georgia. I grew up in a town called Port Arthur, Texas. Port Arthur is down where Louisiana and Texas meet on the Gulf Coast. It's a blue-collar town. It's a refinery town. It's a predominantly black town. And I grew up being one of the only white kids at slumber parties, birthday parties, sports, you name it. Came from a great family. My dad, Bob West, was a sports writer there for 50 years. He was the first sports writer in that part of Texas to put black athletes on the front page of the sports page. 1971 was the first time it ever happened. And when my dad put a black guy on the cover of the sports page, man, some people down there lost their minds. And they got so upset. They broke my dad's windows out. They slid his tires. They sent him a bunch of hate mail. Growing up, when my older brother, my younger brother and I were old enough, my dad would pull that box of hate mail down from the attic. He sit us down in the living room, and he made us read every one of those letters of hate mail. Every nasty word that people said about my dad and my mom, because my dad put a black guy on the front page of the sports page. My dad made us read that hate mail because he said, I want you to see what it's like to take a stand and do the right thing. He said, because sometimes taking a stand and doing the right thing means you're going to stand alone. And he said, it's always okay to stand alone as long as you stand on the right side of history. And I don't know if my dad had any clue how much his middle son was going to need that lesson when he got himself thrown into a maximum security prison 20 years later. So I had a great family, y'all. But I had some issues growing up. I was molested by a babysitter when I was 9 years old. By the time I was 10, I started drinking my dad's beer in the fridge. Everything in my life started with a can of beer, y'all. Started drinking that beer. I'd steal my mom's cigarettes. By the time I was 12, I was smoking pot, smoking blunts with my buddies in school. I skipped school. I had a lot of character issues because I had bad belief systems. Let me tell you about belief systems. Our belief systems determine how we act. And when you have a bad belief system, it tells you how to do something the wrong way. And the longer you hold on to a bad belief system, the harder it is to get rid of. And when we talk about building culture here at Perry, we're talking about building better belief systems. My bad belief system dogged me out my whole life. Because my belief system, even at 10, 12 years old, said it's okay to drink a little beer, smoke a little pot. You're not hurting anybody. You're not even hurting yourself. I couldn't have been more wrong. Had a lot of character issues, but y'all, I could throw a football. And I don't know what y'all heard about Texas high school football, but it's like a religion in my home. Probably a lot like Georgia. And high school football is a big deal in the state of Texas. And I was a man. I was a 3-year starting quarterback for a 5A school. Got a scholarship to play Division I college football, University of North Texas. And by the time I was 20 years old, I was a starting quarterback for my D1 team. And man, I thought I had a ride. My head was this big, y'all. I was a man on campus. But life has a way of giving you these days that I call fork in the road days. And a fork in the road is this. Life's going to knock you down so hard some days. When you get back up and dust yourself off, the world looks different. Things are in different places. But you've got a choice to make at that fork in the road in life. Because your life is going to change that day. Will you make the right choice in the right way or the wrong choice and go the wrong direction? September 21st, 1996, 25 years ago, we took the field against Texas A&M. Beautiful Saturday afternoon in College Station, Texas. Man, I am 20 years old. I'm driving my team downfield in the first series of that game. And on the third play of the game, I went down with a career-ending injury, and I never played college football again. And when I got up to that fork in the road in life, and football was gone, my identity was gone. Because I wrapped my entire identity up into being a football player. Something you should never do. Something external like that's not even yours. You can't wrap your identity up in that. But I did that. And when that was gone, I made a lot of wrong turns at the fork in the roads of life. Because my bad belief system kicked in. And that's why it's so important to have a good belief system. Because when adversity hits, your belief system kicks in. Instead of just drinking a little beer, smoking a little pot, now I'm doing the hardcore drugs, cocaine, ecstasy, pills, you name it. I graduated from college in 1999. Moved off to Washington, D.C. I got a job working in the United States Congress. After that, I worked for a guy running for President of the United States, raising money for him all over America. And when he dropped out of the presidential race in 2004, I moved back to Dallas to train to be a stockbroker for one of the biggest Wall Street banks in the world, UBS, United Bank of Switzerland. And it was at that job as a stockbroker that I came up to the big fork in the road of life. It's 2004. I was passed out asleep at work one day. This other broker comes up, he sees me sleeping. He wakes me up. He's freaked out. When I wake up, I look at him, he's like, Damon, man, wake up. He said, you can't sleep on this job. He said, the markets are open. You're messing with people's money. He said, they will fire you for sleeping here. He said, come on down to the parking garage. I got something to pick you up. So I go down to the parking garage with him that day. And when we get into his car, he hands me this glass pipe with these crystal locks in it. And man, I've never seen a glass pipe before. I freak out with him. I'm like, man, what is that? He said, Damon, just relax. He said, it's crystal meth. He said, you're going to love this stuff. Y'all, truer words have never been spoken. If you don't remember anything I tell you today, remember this next 30 seconds. Meth is the most evil, most destructive, most addictive drug ever created by man. This stuff is made to laugh. It's made to get you hooked. I smoked it one time, instantly hooked. Just like that, y'all. And I could not give everything away fast enough to that drug. My job, my home, my car, my savings account, my family, I tethered to God. Man, I went from working on Wall Street to living on the streets of Dallas for 18 months the first into that pipe. Homeless. Living on the streets, living in dope houses and trap houses with other criminals. I started committing crimes. I started breaking into people's cars. Started breaking into people's storage units. And eventually I started breaking into people's houses. And let me tell you how serious of a crime these burglaries were. I found out in my trial how bad it was. Because a burglar like me, I use an I say accountability. I didn't just steal people's property when I broke into homes. We stole a lot of property. I stole something way more valuable from my victims. I stole their sense of security. And I don't know if my victims will ever regain their sense of security. They will live with that for the rest of their lives, y'all. That's a negative impact to have. But after 3 years of committing property crimes against the people of Dallas, Texas, the Dallas SWAT team on July 30th, 2008, they put an end to the Uptown burglaries. The day that they arrested me, or as I tell audiences everywhere I go, that wasn't just the day I was arrested. That was the day I was rescued, y'all. God got me out of a situation I couldn't get myself out of. So now we're back where the story started. I'm in that holding cell in Dallas County Jail on July 30th, 2008. And after 24 hours of holding and processing, the guards come to get me, and these folks are mad. I've been terrorizing Dallas for 3 years, and they finally have me, the Uptown burglar, in chains. They put me in general population, in one of the worst spots they could find, the most dangerous offenders in there. And within 24 hours, I'm in my first fight over a breakfast tray. And I am scared to death, y'all. All I want to do is talk to my mom and my dad. I'm 32 years old. I'm like a 12-year-old child inside, man. I'm so scared. I get on the phone in the day room and I call home in Port Arthur. And my dad answers the phone. Now, my dad is from an older generation, man. My dad's in his late 70s. I've never seen my father cry. But I heard him cry one time. I called off from the jail. And he was screaming and crying on the phone. Man, I broke my dad. So I started crying because I hurt my dad so bad. My mom snatched the phone out of my dad's hands. My mom's a nurse. She's used to traumatic situations. She gets on the phone and she said, baby, listen. She said, your dad can't talk right now. She said, I've never seen like this before in my life, but we have to have a serious conversation, Damon. We need to talk. She said, you need to understand that we love you unconditionally. She said, there's nothing you can do to make us not love you, man. She said, that was the deal we made with God when He loaned you to us. She said, do you understand that we love you unconditionally? And through the tears, I was like, yeah, Mom, I got it. We love you unconditionally. And she said, that's good, baby. Because we just gave you back to God. She said, there's nothing we can do for you more. And I'll never forget what she said. She said, you are now a captive audience to God, and you better start listening. And then she asked me a question. She said, Damon, do you remember that prayer plaque that I had on your wall as a kid growing up? Now, my mom is one of those moms that has prayer plaques and crosses all over that. My mom's got crosses everywhere. My mom and dad are still alive, still married 53 years. You go on my mom's house, and she's got crosses everywhere, y'all. Some of y'all may have a mom like that. But my mom wants to know about this prayer plaque that was above my bed on Roanoke Street where I grew up all my life in Port Arthur. And my brain was fried, y'all. I've been an adult for 4 years. I can't even think straight. So I'm like, Mom, what are you talking about? What prayer plaque? She said, baby, it's footprints in the sand. She said, do you remember the story about footprints in the sand? And I was like, Mom, I don't even know what you're talking about. So she patiently and lovingly retold me the story of footprints in the sand about a guy walking the beach with God. She said they're walking the beach and they're watching a video of his life play out in the sky. And she said every time something good happened in that man's life, there's two sets of footprints walking side by side. Things are going well. But every time something bad happened, when there was pain, there was hurt, there was suffering, there was loss, when he loses his football career, the guy saw one set of footprints. Finally, the guy couldn't take it anymore, so he calls God out. Says, hey, God, what's up, man? Every time something good in my life happens, man, you're walking with me side by side. I can see the footprints. But when the bad stuff happens, you always abandon me. I see one set of footprints. Why did you abandon me? And she said, that's what God said, Damon, you fool. Every time you saw one set of footprints, I didn't abandon you. I carried you. One started screaming like a football coach. Damon. Looked at that jail cell, and now she said, baby, there's one set of footprints and I'm not yours. She said, get on God's back. I don't want to lose my son. So y'all, that night, I hung up the phone with my mom, and I started praying. But this isn't Paul on the road to Damascus, y'all. This is some jailhouse conversion story. Not yet. I wasn't ready. All I prayed for the next 10 months was the chance to get out and get high again. But when I was in a trial 10 months later, and that jury came back in 10 minutes with a life sentence, it took my breath away, y'all. It took my mom's breath away. My mom was on the front row of the courtroom. And when the judge read the sentence out loud, I heard my mother behind me go, you know, the sound only a mother can make when she hears her son get a life sentence in prison. And everything sped up. The sheriff's on me, the bailiff's on me. They're dragging me out of that courtroom. And man, I lock eyes with my mom across the courtroom. And all I could say to my mom on the way out the door is, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. They put me in this little side room. It's got a bulletproof glass right there. They told me to wait. About 5 minutes later, my parents come in on the other side of that glass. They're going to give me one last visit before I go to prison. My mom does all the talking. She said, baby, she said, debts in life demand to be paid. I'm going to repeat that. It's very important. Debts in life demand to be paid. If you owe a debt, you'll pay it. It may take a while to catch up with you. You'll pay it. It took them 3 years to catch me. She said, debts in life demand to be paid. She said, you just got hit with one heck of a bill from the state of Texas. She said, but you did the things they said you did that trial. So you got to go and pay that debt to society. You go to Texas, that debt. She said, but you owe your father and I a debt too. She said, we gave you all the opportunity, love, and support to be anything you want to be in life. And she said, that's how you just repay us? What we saw in that courtroom? She said, that's not going to work. She said, we raised you in Port Arthur, Texas, a giant melting pot of the city. Gave you a great moral compass, which you chose to not use. She said, so here's the debt you're going to pay to us. When you go to prison, you will not get in one of these white hate groups, one of these Aryan Brotherhood type of gangs, because you're scared you're not even the minority there. She said, that's not going to work. You were never raised to be a racist, and you're not going to start now. She said, you will not get any tattoos while you're inside that prison. Y'all, I show people my sleeves all the time. I was in prison for almost 10 years. No tattoos. These guys want to tattoo every inch of your body in the maximum security prison. And every time one of those guys would come up to me in prison, hey, Wes, let me put a tattoo on you. I'd be like, dude, I can't do it, man. My mom said no. Right, because she did. May 18, 2009, my mom said no games, no tattoos. She said, you come back as the man we raised, or don't come back at all. I mean, this is tough love for my mom. She said, do you understand this debt you're going to pay? I was like, yeah, Mom, I got it. But y'all know I know. I've never been to prison before. I don't know anybody that's ever been to prison before. I go back to my pod in Dallas County Jail, and I'm asking all these guys that have been to prison before, how am I going to survive? What am I going to do? And every guy I talk to, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, they tell me the same thing. You've got to get into a game. They said you can't survive without a game. They told me some lies that tell people in the streets of America. The gang is your family. The gang will love you. The gang will protect you. The gang will provide for you. These are all lies, because gangs don't do that. Families do that kind of stuff. Now, what wasn't a lie is they said you're going to the worst part of the prison system, where everybody in the building you live in has life. They call it the life skills building. Make your life easy, Wes. Get into a gang. But there was this one guy in Dallas County Jail that was so different than everybody else. This older black man named Mr. Jackson. And Mr. Jackson's what you call a career criminal. He's been in and out of prison all his life, 4 or 5 times. But he is the most positive guy I've ever met in my life. Man, Mr. Jackson had a smile on his face everywhere he went. You couldn't like a smile for Jackson's face. And every single morning, Jackson would come up to my cell, to my bunk, and he would pick me up like a ray of sunshine in a dark place with his positive energy. So one morning, Jackson comes up, he's got a cup of coffee in his hands and a smile on his face. He said, Wes, I've been watching you. Have you dealing with those knuckleheads and those dummies? Talking about you got to get into a game. He said, man, don't listen to these fools. He said, you want to keep that promise you made to your mom and your dad, to God? He said, now let me tell you what prison's really going to be like. He said, the first thing you need to understand about prison, he said, prison is all about race. Race. He said, it's all about race because all the inmates in there want it to be about race. He said, when you walk in the door of that license good, there's going to be a TV set in that day room. In front of that TV set, they got rows of benches. He said, the first row of benches, you cannot sit on that first row of benches. He said, that's for the blacks. He said, that's our row. You get your head smashed in, you sit on the blacks row. He said, the second row of benches, you can't sit on that row either. That's for the Hispanics. You'll smash your head in too if you try to sit on that row. He said, the third row of benches, if there's a third row of benches, is where the white folks sit. He said, if there's no third row, white folks sit on the floor. He said, that's just the way the numbers work in prison. So don't get into a wreck over your race. He said, because it's about race, when you walk in the door there, the white gangs get the first dibs on you. The Aryan Brotherhood, the Aryan Circle, the White Knights, the Woods. He said, you've got to fight all the white gangs off if you want your independence from them. He said, if you don't give in to their ideology of hate out of fear. Fear. Let me tell y'all what I've learned about fear. Fear is a liar. Fear makes you see things that aren't really there. It makes you believe things that aren't real. My co-author and good friend, John Gordon. John Gordon says that fear and faith have more in common than the letter F they begin with. John says fear and faith both believe in futures that have not even happened yet. Fear is a negative future. You can choose to believe in that if you want. But faith's a positive future, but you also have the choice to believe in. And so John's telling everybody all the time, choose faith over fear. And that's kind of what Jackson's telling me that day. Don't give in to the white gangs out of fear. He said, but get ready. Because once you get done with the white gangs, now the black gangs are coming after you. Because the white gangs are going to send them after you. And the black gangs, the Crips, the Bloods, the Gangster Disciples, the main Negro Warriors, they're going to be happy to tee off on an independent white guy that will not get with his own race, his own kind. He said, but if you survive all of that, and he said, you can survive all of that, he said, you will earn the right to walk alone. He said, the strongest man in prison always walks alone, does not join a gang. He told me something about fighting that day. It's something I remind every audience of that I go speak to. He said, you don't have to win all your fights, but you do have to fight all your fights. It's a huge lesson in life, y'all. That tells you that some days you're going to win, And some days you are going to lose. Losing is a part of life, y'all. It's how we deal with our losses and how we get up to face our other challenges. Nobody's going to win all their battles in life. And nobody keeps track of your wins and losses. But they are watching to see if you don't get back up again. But when Jackson's telling me this back in 2009, man, I'm looking back at this dude like a deer in headlights, all this violence and terror I'm about to walk into. That's when he said, Wes, let me break it down for you another way. He said, I want you to imagine prison as a pot of boiling water. He said, now anything we put in that pot of boiling water is going to be changed by the heat and the pressure inside that pot. He said, I'll put three things in that pot of boiling water and watch how they change. A carrot, an egg, and a coffee bean. Here's where I first showed the story of the coffee bean, y'all. So Jackson said, first things first. He said, if I put a carrot in that pot of boiling water we call prison, he said, what happens to the carrot? Now, Mr. Jackson, that carrot's going to turn soft. He said, that's right. He said, the carrot went into the water hard, though. But the water, prison, turned the hard carrot soft, mushy, and weak. He said, the carrot got beat, he got robbed, he may have gotten killed. You don't want to be the carrot. He said, what about the egg, Wes? What happens to the egg in the pot of boiling water we call prison? And I'm like, Mr. Jackson, that egg is going to turn hard, like a hard-boiled egg. He said, that's right. He said, the egg has an outer shell that protects it physically, but inside that shell, that soft liquid core, the egg's heart becomes hard. He said, if your heart becomes hard, now you're incapable of giving or receiving love. He said, if you're incapable of giving or receiving love, you become institutionalized, and you will not come back as someone your parents recognize, because your eggshell will have swastikas tattooed all over it. Then he asked, he said, what about the coffee bean, Wes? He said, what happens to the coffee bean and the pot of boiling water we call prison? And I didn't know. I didn't know what happened to coffee. I didn't have an answer for Jackson. And that's when Mr. Jackson, a man that looked nothing like me, didn't come from the same American experience I came from, didn't believe the same things I believe. This is a black Muslim man from the streets of Dallas, Texas. I'm a white Catholic guy from a little town called Port Arthur. But this guy's so different than me. Shared with me one of the most important and transformational messages I've ever heard in my entire life. And the moral of that is this. If you ever shut yourself off to someone because they look different than you, different background than you, different race, gender, religion, ethnicity, if you shut yourself off to people because of their differences, you're going to miss some of the most important lessons and some of the best friendships in this life too. Because Mr. Jackson told me that day. He said, if I put a coffee bean into that same pot of boiling water we call prison, he said, now you're going to change the name of that water to coffee. Because he said the coffee bean, Wes, the smallest of the three things, he said, small like you, had the power to change the entire atmosphere inside of that pot, because the power was inside the coffee bean. He said, just like the power is inside of you. He said, everything else was changed by the water. The carrot was changed by the water. The egg was changed by the water. He said, but the coffee bean is the only thing that can change the water. He said, the coffee bean can't even do its job till the water is the hottest, till the temperature is the highest. He said, everybody in life, we put out energy, negative, positive. He said, whatever kind of energy you put out, you attract back. Called the law of attraction. And it worked, guys. He said, you want to walk around prison all the time with a meat mug in your face and a frown? You want to look hard for those other guys? He said, man, what you're going to do is you're going to attract the most negative, violent, dangerous offenders, because your negative energy will attract their negative energy. He said, when you're going to the license building, that can be a dangerous, even deadly endeavor to attract these men to you. He said, but Wes, conversely, if you walk around that prison with a smile on your face, and you let those guys know they're not getting to you, no matter what they do, they can't break you. He said, you'll change that prison from the inside out. He said, the best part about it is the other coffee beans in prison, the other positive inmates, they'll find you because of your positive energy. He told me what my first day in prison was going to look like. He said, now Wes, when you walk in that life sentence building, he said, they let you into that day room for your first bunk assignment. He said, do not run in your bunk if the guys will be scared. He said, you put your bags down, you put your back against the wall, and just let it happen. I'm like, let what happen, dude? What are you talking about, old man? He said, your heart check. Your heart check's the most important fight you're ever going to get into in prison. He said, they don't know who you are. You're facing the block. They got to figure out where you're going to go. He said, the first guy that's going to come up to you is going to be a white guy because you're white. He said, the first guy is not a threat. He's an information guy. He's a scout. He's going to want to know what gang you're going to be a part of. He said, get this guy out of your face as fast as you can and get ready. Because the second guy that comes up to you, he's not coming to talk to you. He's going to hurt you. He said, when that guy gets within range, put your fist in his mouth. Hit him as hard as you can. Get the jump on your first fight. And the last thing Mr. Jackson told me, August 10th, 2009, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice sent the armed guard transport to pick up me, inmate West, number 1585689, to serve my life sentence at the Texas Maximum Security Prison. And the last thing Mr. Jackson told me on the way out that door, he said, West, go out there and go be a coffee bean. Be a coffee bean. 4 words. Be a coffee bean. If this old man shoot me straight, that means the power is inside me. And if the power is inside of me, then it's not going to be in the hands of the criminal justice system, the guards, or the other inmates. Not unless I give it to them. Now, if the power is inside me, and this man shoot me straight, that means no matter what environment I get dropped off in, no matter what adversity I face in life, I won't just survive. I'll thrive. If the power is inside me, y'all, I got my chance to find out. Prison was the hardest, most dangerous, most terrifying thing I've ever been through in my life. There's sometimes I still don't know how to survive those first 2 months, those violent months of prison. You know what's some prison stories? People love prison stories. Let's go. Day 1 of prison. They let me, I got a mattress in one room, I got a couple bags of property with me. They let me into that day room when that license building. The door closes behind me. Boom! And I look up, I'm in this giant room. There's 3 tiers of cells. Inmates hanging out over all the railings of the cell. It was loud. Prison was like living in an aircraft carrier. It's so loud in prison. And as soon as that door closed and they saw me walk in that door, the volume in the room dropped to 0. Shh. Think about this whole gymnasium being loud. Just shh. And everybody's staring at the new guy just walked in. Man, I'm freaked out. I'm looking for myself. I'm gonna make a run for it, right? Forget what Jackson said. But 45 cells, my bunk assignment is on the 3rd tier above the shower. Furthest cell from the door. I would never make it. So I put my bags down, I put my mattress down, I put my back against the wall, and I waited. Didn't take 5 minutes. Here he comes, just like Jackson. A little bitty white dude comes up first. Little bald-headed white dude, he's tatted up from head to toe. Even his eyelids are tatted up. He gets into my face. He says, hey, white boy. He said, what family you ride with, white boy? They call gangs families. Now, a gang and a family are the same thing, guys. That's what the whole misconception on gangs. Gangs and families are the same thing. That's what he said. He said, what family are you going to ride with, white boy? I was like, man, get out of my face, little dude. I ride with God. Please, leave me alone. I ride with God. He laughed at me. He said, God isn't here, white boy, because we kicked him out. He said, but we're here and we're coming to get you. He said, get ready. And he stumbles off to the right. Woo, man, I'm ready to pee in my pants, guys. I'm so freaked out. I didn't have long to wait. Because coming on the 3rd tier, biggest corn-fed white dude I've ever seen in my life. This dude is a giant. He's just muscled up and bald-headed dude's coming on the 3rd tier. I see him coming on the stairwell on the side. I get a good look at this guy from the front. Huge dude, man. Bald-headed dude with a swastika tattooed all over the top of his skull. All I see is a swastika, 2 beady eyeballs and muscles coming at me. Y'all, I played sports all my life. I could be coached. And I remember what Jackson said. When that big dude got in the ring, pop in my mouth as hard as I could. Boom! And in 20 seconds, my first fight in prison was over. Because that dude he had me on the ground. He beat me from one side of the room to the other, y'all. That's what I was going to tell you. I beat that dude up, huh? Everywhere I go, people are like, man, you get it? No! We know I didn't get that dude, man. Some little white boy goes to prison and starts beating everybody up. That's Hollywood, man. That's right. It's a movie, man. It doesn't happen in real life. Let me tell you about a real life fight. This is the reality, guys. From the time I got into prison, I probably got 3 dozen fights while I was locked up. And I lost 75% of my fights. I got my butt kicked all over that prison. But I won every single one of my fights by Jackson Sanders. Because Jackson told me, he said, you don't have to win all your fights, but you got to fight all your fights. So you know what? I just kept showing up. I lost. And most of the time when I show up, I lose. But you know what? I go. They could never call me out and me not show up. It took 2 weeks to get to the white games. After that, it was the black games. Sometimes more than one at a time, because their job was to try to break me. And 6 weeks in the prison, man, 6 weeks in the prison, I was like, you know what? One Monday morning, I got up, and I was so disgusted with myself. I was so tired of living in fear. I look in the mirror at myself, and that mirror is not just like a real mirror, it's a piece of steel. You can barely see out of it. And I look in that mirror, and I say this one sentence. I remember a football coach in college said this one time. It was the most powerful sentence in the English language, too. It's 20 letters, 10 words. If it is to be, it is up to me. If it is to be, it is up to me. You know why that's so powerful? That's an action statement. That tells you to get up and go do something. Because God will lead you so far, but you've got free will. You've got to get up and go take care of business. So I got up that Monday morning, and I went to the rec yard. If I'm going to be fighting these guys, I'm an athlete. I'm going to do it playing sports. Now, remember I told you Jackson said prison was all about race? Remember that? Jackson was spot on. The most segregated place I've ever seen in my life was the rec yard of that licensed building. We'll walk up to the rec yard real quick. So you got all these sports in the rec yard. Every one of those sports is segregated by race. The volleyball court, sand volleyball court, whites and Hispanics only, no blacks allowed. The handball court, all the races got to play handball. But if you want to play doubles and partner up with somebody, your partner has to be the same skin color as you. You can't mix the races out there playing handball. The weight stack, same thing. Just like you see in the movie. Everybody wants to push that iron in prison. But you want to lift weights, all the races get to lift weights. You want someone to spot you, someone to work out with you, same skin color as you, and you cannot mix the races in that weight bench. I passed all those sports up that day, and I hit it straight to the basketball court. Who do you think runs that basketball court? The blacks, the brothers, they run it, man. And no white boys are allowed on that basketball court. But check this out, y'all. I grew up in Port Arthur, Texas. I grew up being a white guy in the basketball court. I've been around blacks all my life, too. But it doesn't matter. All those credentials in the world won't give them that basketball court because no white guys are allowed, and that racial stuff in prison is strong. But I've been watching these guys play for 2 weeks, and I found a flaw in their system. I'm going to get in that game that Monday morning. Because after every game they play, they're going to shoot for teams for the next game. You know what shoot for teams is? First 2 guys take shots, you can be a team captain. So I'm watching that game play out that Monday morning. It's a lopsided game. I get on the side of the court where I know the game's going to end on. And man, my feet aren't supposed to be in that court. People are like, what is this white boy doing? And as soon as that basketball went to the last basket for that last shot, man, I went and lunged and fell on that basketball like a football's doing football. Coach, you did right. I had that ball wrapped up. And I got it like this. And man, the entire basketball court sucked up around me. See of angry black faces, and they all mad. Give us our ball back, white boy. We lost your mind. Y'all are the toughest boys I can find, squeaking and cracking. Man, put up, shoot my ball, shoot my shot, shoot my shot. White. Man, these guys are incredulous. They're like, dude, we're going to kill you, man. Have you lost your mind? Biggest dude out there, man, this Blood from Houston, named Jay Blood. Jay Blood gets up in my face, and I got this ball wrapped up. I think Jay Blood's going to knock me out. He's not getting this ball from me, man. Jay Blood gets up in my face and says, you know what, white boy? He said, get up on the line. He said, shoot your shot. He said, boy, I hope you can make this basket. And about that time, the basketball court part of that free throw line appeared. Y'all, that free throw line, we'll take this line, we'll take the equator. It's so big, y'all. That basketball goal, we'll take it 100 yards away, man. And I'm sitting there with this ball in my hand thinking, man, here's what's up. If I miss this shot, they're going to kill me. And I didn't disrespect the basketball court. I disrespected the entire race. And I've already fought the whites off and told them how to look their head. They're over there screaming the white gangs and watching what's going on. They're like, man, kill it. Kill it. They want me dead. But if I make this shot, they're going to let me play. They're going to hurt me. Because they're going to let me know I don't belong in the basketball court. But you know what? My back is against the wall. If it is to be, it's up to me. So I get up the line, breathe in, breathe out, let it rip. Nothing but net. I'm a captain. When I step back, Jay Boy makes a shot. He steps back. We pick our teams. I pick my 4 guys. He picks his 4 guys. We got to score 5 on 5 getting ready to play, right? Wrong. It was 9 on 1. My own teammates don't want me out there. This is basketball in the licensed building in the max security prison. There's no fouls. There's no referee. There's no guard in that tower that's going to save you from that match. Man, I came in, you can punch, kick, scratch, bite, pull hair, whatever you want to do. I came out that first day, I had a black eye, a busted lip, but I survived. I went out there the next morning, walked to my back. I looked like I'd been hit by a truck, and I walked out there the next morning. These dudes are laughing at me. Hey, white boy, we thought you had enough yesterday, white boy. I said, hey, man, I thought you boys were playing basketball today. What's up? Man, I never had to worry about shooting for teams again. They picked me first every game after that. They wanted to make sure I was going to be in that basketball court. And every single day, I had to keep showing up in that basketball court. And man, I'm getting banged around and y'all out there, y'all. And I'm giving back where I can. Because the whole point is to earn some respect. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You know what I learned that week? I learned a lot about adversity. I learned that there's two things in life that keep me from overcoming my adversity. Two things. I'm always capable of way more than I think I am. And the situation is never as bad as I think it's going to be. Thinking. Thinking gets in the way of us overcoming our obstacles all the time. We think we can't do something, so we don't do it. But if you think you can, then you will. Just like that backyard story. All that week I went out there, and on Saturday, the last day of that week, man, I'm out there playing basketball with these guys, and after that basketball game was over, these guys circled around like they did 6 days before. Whole different situation, different body language. Jay Bird goes off the top again. He says, Wes, you pulled something off like that. We've never seen a white boy pull off before. He said, you took everything we had, you gave it back what you could. He said, that took guts, but you never once got racial the entire time you were out. He said, you don't have to worry about the blacks so much time here. You're good with us. You've earned that. And man, that felt good. But you know what? You know what really hit me that day? It wasn't the fact that I got my respect. The scared white boy got his respect. Here, we understand that. That's on the surface. But what I saw that day was those men on that basketball, those black men on the basketball court. Some of those guys had 20 years of a bad belief system. Since a guy that looks like me, my skin color, doesn't belong in your world. But in 6 days, those guys are going to change. In 6 days, they became coffee beans. Everybody in that basketball court became a coffee bean that week. And man, they let me into their world. That's the first time I saw Mr. Jackson's story even played. And it was just a time too, y'all, because after 2 months in prison, even though the violence and terror was over, I had a bigger problem in my hands. I was becoming the egg. I didn't want to be the egg, but prison was such a violent, negative, and toxic environment. I was becoming part of prison, and I didn't want to be the egg, but I didn't know how to be the coffee bean. One of the last conversations I had with Mr. Jackson, I asked him, I said, man, what am I going to find more of when I get to prison? And he fired back without hesitation. He said, eggs. Wes, eggs. He said, the egg is the natural evolution of a human being inside the environment you're about to go into. He said, you're going to probably become the egg too. Jackson was right. Jackson was right about everything. I didn't know how to do coffee. I was having a conversation one night with my cellmate. So we got into Carlos was 5'4", a little bank robber from San Antonio. Served 99 years for a bunch of bank robbery. Real good guy. He was a nice guy. And so Carlos and I were talking one night, and he told me, he said, man, if you want to become this coffee bean, you have to change your mindset. Your mindset. Your mindset's so important. Remember the thinking thing. He said, you have to change the way you see the obstacle in front of you. He said, right now, your obstacle is prison. Your problem is prison. He said, you have to stop looking at prison as a punishment and start looking at prison as an opportunity. Now, I started this presentation, I talked about finding the opportunity in adversity. Think about the adversity I'm sitting in. I just started serving a fresh life sentence in a maximum security prison. I fought for my life for 2 months, and the little bank robber from San Antonio is telling me this is an opportunity, it's not a punishment. I couldn't wrap my brain around that. I was like, Carlos, what do you mean? Opportunity. He said, it's your opportunity, Wes, to work on yourself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to become the best version of yourself possible. He said, what are you prepared to do tomorrow with your opportunity? So next morning I got up, guys, and my life changed. Because the minute my feet hit the cold concrete floor of that prison cell, I look up at the ceiling, I'm like, all right, God, thank you for this opportunity. And even though I didn't fully believe it that first day, I did what is so necessary in life to change the situation I was in. I took one step into action. And when you take this first step into action, guys, don't worry about having the best plan laid out in front of you, or how you're going to get to your goal. Just keep going. Sometimes the plan is going to happen along the way. Don't hold back from taking action because you don't know exactly every step of the way you're going to get there. Most people don't. Most people don't have life like that. And don't worry about things happening too fast. Right now, we live in a world where it's instant gratification. We want it now. That's not the way the real world works. Because results take time to measure, and life is a long time to live. And the choices we make today will affect our life tomorrow. I got out of prison every single day. I worked on myself. Days became weeks, weeks became months, and months became years. Years before I finally saw any payoff on what I was trying to think about that. You wake up every day in a dungeon, and you work towards the goal, and you see nothing in front of you that shows that you made it to that goal. But I finally figured out how to become that coffee. And I'm going to share it with you today because I believe this. I believe that if we can see examples of other people overcoming their adversity in life and better than they can tell us how they did that, that has value because we can apply that to our lives too. So here's the 5 ways of being a coffee. So the first rule about being a coffee is about having positive body language. Positive body language. Your body language is so powerful, y'all. Every time you walk out that door, you know what people need to see from you? Your smile. Your smile is so powerful. First of all, your smile has the power to release a chemical in your brain called an endorphin. That's the stuff that makes you feel good. I was on a plane coming out here to Atlanta the other night, and this little kid behind me was screaming for the entire hour and a half of the plane ride. You know what I did? I sat in my seat, I smiled, and eventually, you know what? I started feeling, I couldn't even hear the kid anymore. Because those endorphins were releasing. That stuff is powerful. I found that out in prison. I was sitting in my bunk and I'd smile, and my disposition changed. Now, that's what it does for you. But whenever you smile and you walk into a room, people see you smile. You know what they do? They smile back. Because smiles are contagious. People want to feel good. And when you smile, you give them permission to smile back. You change the energy everywhere you go. Mr. Jackson told me, he said you will either infect the rooms you go into with your negative energy, or you're going to affect every room you go into with your positive energy. Infect versus affect. So smile. Everywhere you go, smile. Second rule about being a coffee is getting up every day and working out on yourself in 3 areas. Spiritually, mentally, and physically. People ask me all the time, what's your spiritual workout? I'm going to give you my spiritual workout. I'm going to tell you every morning since I've been in prison, I get up and say the same prayer to God. It's a 2-part prayer. I ask God for 2 things in the morning, and I don't bother him the rest of the day. Get this. This is what I say every morning, just like I did when I woke up at the King this morning here in Perry, Georgia. I say, hey, God, put in front of me what you need me to do today for you, and let me recognize that when I see it, because I don't want to miss that. Amen. That's it. I don't have a list of things I think I might want or need, because I trusted in my faith. I'm a Christian. I trust in my faith. If I take care of what God needs me to do for Him, He's going to take care of my needs too. Not my wants, but my needs. Needs and wants are 2 different things, y'all. That's it. That's my entire spiritual workout. Now, your mental workout is every book you read, every video you watch, it's your social media feeds. Who are you following? What are they posting? Where do you post? Who are you hanging out with? Because if you show me who you hang out with, I can tell you who you are. And if you're not hanging out with people that make you become a better version of yourself, that push you to be the best version of yourself, you're hanging out with the wrong people. Find new friends, because those people aren't friends anyway. Y'all, you are what you eat. That's not just about food. That's about everything you put in this big brain of yours up here. And you will look like and act like on the outside what you feed this big thing on the inside. So feed yourself the right, positive stuff. And physical means you keep taking care of yourself. You listen to these coaches. You get enough rest at night. Go to bed at night, guys. Get enough rest. Take care of the body. You get one body this life. The third rule about being a coffee meeting is the secret to life. The secret to life is servant leadership. Servant leadership is helping other people achieve their goals in life. That's this culture y'all are building here at Perry. Servant leadership. Servant leadership says, you know what? I'm going to help other people reach their goals in life. I'm going to help people reach a different level of life. Because when we're helping other people, that's when we're at our best. And that's what we're all called to do. And check this out. Everybody you meet in life, every single person you run into, they're going through something. Everybody struggles in life. Everybody is struggling with something. Everybody in this room struggles with something today. The three hardest words for people to say, I need help. I need help. Three hardest words for people to say. Find someone today to help out, someone that is in need, because when we're doing that, we're paying it forward, because everybody in this room has had help to get where you are today. Find someone today to help out me. The fourth rule about being a coffee bean is about controlling the controllables. This was the hardest one for me to understand. Still to this day, I have a hard time with this one. There's only four things you control, like four, that's it. You control what you think, what you say, what you feel, and most importantly, everybody's going to see what you do, your actions. What you think, what you say, what you feel, what I'm telling you is, the world that goes on around you, you don't control any of that. But you control how you respond to everything that goes on around you. Then the last rule about being a coffee bean is one of my favorites, because I am a very flawed guy. I've made a lot of mistakes in life, but let me tell you something. Your past does not define you. Your past wins don't matter. Your past loss don't matter. Last season doesn't matter. Your past is your lesson. You learn from it and you teach others with it. There's a reason why your windshield is bigger than your rearview mirror. You need a lot more room to look forward than you do to look back. If you try to drive your car around, watching out your rearview mirror the whole time, you hit everything on the road in front of you in sight. Same thing happens in life. When you live in the past, you pass good things, you pass bad things, and let that past go. You can't change that past. Your past is your lesson. The present today is a gift. Make the most of the day. And the future is your motivation. But motivate yourself with the right things. Good things, wholesome things. So I'm going to wrap this up with what I call my call to action. It's this. Life is a pot of boiling water. You already know this, guys. You have three choices on how you're going to respond to that pot of boiling water called life. You can be like the carrot that turns soft and sad and weak. You know what? You're going to have carrot days. That's called being sad. Everybody takes a turn in life being sad. It's a natural human emotion. So don't worry about that. You're going to have I had a carrot day last week. Then there's going to be those days that make you hard and mad and mean and angry and everybody irritates you. Those are the egg days. And you know what? Natural human emotion. You're going to have egg days. I have them all the time. But there's that third option, guys. That third option. That third option that says, you know what? You're a coffee bean. And being a coffee bean means that you get to change your day anytime you want. Means having a bad day is a choice. Because anytime you want. 9 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock at night, you know what you can do in your bad day? Take a step back, take a deep breath. You know what? I don't have to be the carrot. And I don't have to be the egg. And then you run and jump in that pot of warm water called life and you tell life, you know what? Turn it up. I got this. And the longer the coffee bean sits and the pot of warm water called life, the stronger your pot of coffee is going to be. So my call to action each and every one of y'all today in high school is the same call to action Mr. Jackson gave me 12 years ago when the prison bus came to pick me up to serve my life sentence in a Texas maximum security prison. My call to action to you is you go out there and you go be a coffee bean. Be a coffee bean, guys. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
That was every bit and more. And I know guys, I heard a lot of that stuff already. But Damon tells it a lot better than I do. And I hope that you got as much out of that as I did. And my daughter Morgan and still my wife, I'll tell you all the time when we ride down the road, I'm listening to Damon trying to record something. And a lot of that stuff they probably already knew those stories. And but the impact that story has had on me, this community, this football team, this school building, has been tremendous. And I just want to thank y'all for coming out. Damon, did you have a minute to do any questions about Q's and A's?
Yeah, matter of fact, I want to tell y'all something about putting in the work. I remember I mentioned this about you texting me on Twitter, you messaging me on Twitter. In 2017, I'd been out of prison for January of 2017, I'd been out of prison 14 months, and I got this story that I want to share with a college football program. But I don't want to be college football coaches. I played ball 20 years ago. So a buddy of mine calls me up and he said, hey, I live 90 miles from Houston. He said, tonight in Houston is the Bear Bryant Coach of the Year. The Bear Bryant coach of the year award, they're going to name the best college football coach in America. He said the 8 best coaches in America are going to be in this room at the Toyota Center. I've got an extra press pass I can sneak you in. Do you want to come? Man, you bet. I'm hungry, guys. I want to go. I got that rookie mentality. So I drive the 90 miles from Beaumont to Houston after work. I've got this hand-me-down suit on. He sneaks in the back door of the Toyota Center, hands me a press pass. He said, "You're on your own." He's gone. I never seen him again the rest of the night. So I'm walking around, and all the best coaches in America, USC, Wisconsin, Penn State, PJ Fleck, they're all there. And I get to go meet every one of these guys, shake their hands, and give them my pitch of why they should bring me in to talk to the team. And every guy I meet that night, every coach I meet, slams the door in my face. They all tell me no. No, don't call us, we'll call you. One of the coaches runs the other direction when I told him I just got out of prison. He can't get away from me fast enough. In 1 hour, 7 of the 8 coaches have told me no. That's a no every 8 minutes, y'all. I'm in the corner of the Toyota Center, and I'm licking my wounds, feeling sorry for myself, and I start listening to myself. Here's a lesson. Don't ever listen to yourself. Talk to yourself. Because I start listening to that voice in my head that says, "You know what, Damon? Go home. It's over. It's over." That last coach is going to tell you no, like all 7 of the coaches told you no tonight, and he's the hardest guy to get to the room because they just beat Alabama for the national championship. I can't even get near this guy. But you know what? I stopped listening to that voice and I started talking to myself instead of listening to myself. I'm in the corner of the Toyota Center like a nut talking to myself. No, man, you're not going anywhere. You survived prison. You survived way worse than this. And you want to be a motivational speaker. What kind of motivational speaker just quit? Who wants to listen to that guy? So y'all, I stalked Dabo Swinney around that room that night. And I must have been a crazy person, man. I'm hiding behind fake plants. Every conversation, I'm eavesdropping, I'm like the guy in the background. And man, I finally pounced. It took me over an hour, and I finally pounced on Dabo's going to come out of the men's room. I got Dabo against the wall, I'm up in his face, and I give Dabo my pitch. And when I get done talking, I take a deep breath, and Dabo's like, "Hey, you got a card on it or something, man?" So I give Dabo my card, and his body language is terrible. He can't get away from me fast. He grabs my card, and over his shoulder, he's like, "Dabo, we need to touch." And man, as soon as Dabo walked off, I'm like, "Oh, man. I'm done." I went 0 for 8, guys. 0 for 8. But you know what? I felt good about that last note. You know why? Because I left it all on the field. And that's what we talk about in sports, guys. We talk about leaving it all on the field. When you leave it all on the field, guess what you get to do at the end of the night? You get to go home and sleep like a baby. Because you're getting everything you could. That's what we want. That's all we want from you is to leave it on the field. So I forgot all about that night. 4 months later, I get an email out of the blue from a guy named Mike Dewey. Mike Dewey's the director of football operations at Clemson. He says, "Hey, Damon, Coach Swinney mentioned the award show in Houston. Said he'd love to have you come talk to the team. Do you have August 1st open?" Dude, I got every first open, Mike Dewey. I can be there tomorrow, man. I got nothing going on in my life. So August 1st, 2017, I'm going to speak to the Clemson Tigers, the defending national champions of college football. And when I got done with my presentation that night, Dabo's got me up against the wall in the team room at Clemson. He's in my face. He said, "Dad, that's the most amazing story I've ever heard. I've never seen my players respond like that to a speaker." He said, "Have you been to Alabama yet?" And I'm like, "No, Dabo, I've been to Clemson, dude. I haven't been anywhere." He said, "Man, I just texted Nick Saban in the back of the room. Told him I was watching. We'll see what happens." And when I made it to Houston the next morning, I had a voicemail and a text message from the director of football operations at the University of Alabama. It says, "Dabo called. We'll see you in Tuscaloosa in 3 weeks. You're on." Just like that, Dabo's going to kick open the door to call. And now every coach in America is calling me up. Lincoln Riley, they're all calling me up. "We can come talk to my team. Dabo's going to come here." But 1 year later, when I get a phone call from a guy named John Gordon, August 2018, John Gordon's a best-selling author, huge motivational speaker. And he says, "Damon, I just got done talking to Dabo's team, and all Dabo could do was tell me about you and the coffee bean message." He said, "Be a coffee bean is part of the culture at Clemson now." They got shirts that said, "Be a coffee bean" at Clemson with a little paw print on it. He said, "Let's write a book. We'll call it The Coffee Bean." He said, "The world needs a coffee bean message." So we wrote the book, The Coffee Bean, in 2019. It came out. It's been a bestseller. It's in every language in the world: Chinese, Spanish, Arabic, French, Italian. This story that a guy told me in Dallas County Jail is now a big story going on all over the world. But it all goes back to that one night in Houston, Texas, when I refused to quit. When I've been beat 7 times that night, I refuse to go home and I refuse to quit. And the moral of that is this: if you quit, if you give up life, you'll never know what you could have been capable of. You'll never know when your Dabo's winning moment's going to be. Don't give up. Don't quit. Put in the work with everyone who hopes and goals and dreams, and you will get there. Anybody else? Mr. Jackson, this is the most frequent question I get. I don't know Mr. Jackson's real name. He went by the name Muhammad. These guys, when they convert to Islam, they give up their government name. I don't know what his government name was. My government name is Damon. He went by the name Muhammad. Think about Cassius Clay when he went to prison in the 1960s. He came out Muhammad Ali. The only name I knew about was Muhammad. I call him Mr. Jackson for the sake of the story, but I don't know Muhammad's real name. Dallas County Jail's like, we need a name, we need a birthday or something. So I gotta hope if he's still alive that he finds me, because I got a heck of a story for him. So I'm really hoping to find Mr. Jackson. Anybody else? What you got? I served 7 years and 3 months in prison, and I've got to serve the rest of my sentence out here with a parole officer till 2073. So it's a long time on paper, a long time. Every month, I check in with my PO, I pee his cup, I pay a fine, $18 fine every month for the rest of my life. Every time I travel outside the state of Texas, I'm going to get permission to do it. So today, to come here, I had a permission slip to come here to Atlanta, Georgia. So, for the rest of my life. Anybody else?
How close were you to giving up?
How close was I to giving up? Man, close, man. That first 2 months of prison was make or break point. There was a point right before the basketball court story. That was on Monday when I went to the basketball court. On Friday before that, I got jumped by like 4 guys, right? And man, I was done. That's when I gave up. They were trying to break me. They finally broke me that Friday. And Saturday morning, I went to the chapel. And my plan was I was going to go to church one last time, and I was going to come back to my bunk and kill myself. I was going to hang myself off the top bunk. I was done, right? So I'm in this church service in the Chapel of Hope. We got about 200 inmates in there. And I get a tap on my shoulder in the middle of the service. And I look down, it's this little chaplain volunteer lady, Miss D. Miss D taps me on the shoulder, little old lady walks the cane. She says, come with me, Mr. West. So I go into her office, and I sit down, and she looks at me, she says, something's bothering me today, Mr. West. I can see that something's bothering me. She said, what's wrong, Mr. West? I'm like, how does she, there's 200 guys in that chapel. How does she know something's wrong with me, right? We're in prison. So I'm alone with this team, and I start crying. I told her what I was going to do. I said, I can't take it anymore, and I'm going to check out. I said, I'm just going to kill myself. It'll be easier on my family, it'll be easier on me. She said, you can't kill yourself. She said, you can't give up on God. And man, the minute she mentioned God, I got so mad. I'm like, what do you mean God? How can God create a place so wicked and evil and sinister as prison, right? And she said, she didn't break it, she didn't flinch. She said, Mr. West, you're not the first person to question God, you won't be the last. She said, the Bible is full of people that question God. She said, but they all came back to God because they learned what the secret to faith was. I said, Miss D, I need to know what the secret to faith is. Right now is when I need to know the secret. She told me. She said, here's the secret to faith. Y'all ready to hear it? She said, if you're going to pray, don't worry. And if you're going to worry, don't pray. That's it. You can't have it both ways. You're going to let God do his job, or you're going to do his job for you. She said, you're going to let God drive the car, or you're going to drive the car. She said, but the last time you drove the car, you parked inside of the maximum security prison. So choose who gets those keys today and choose wisely. That's it. That was the time when I thought about giving up. So, anybody else? I can't hear you, brother. How did my parents react when I finally came home? So, I went to a prison that's about 5 miles from where I grew up. The entire big state of Texas, they put me in a prison in my own backyard. I got to see my parents came to visit me over 150 times while I was in prison. Unheard of in prison. And the wardens and everybody are like, man, I've never seen a family that's holding on so tight to somebody inside like that. So I got to see my parents all the time. And when I paroled out of prison, I lived with my parents for the first 2 years I was out. So we have rebuilt a relationship. My mom and my dad, they're still alive, still married. We've been married for 53 years. But yeah, we've rebuilt our relationship. But that's all been done through Christ. I mean, it's just, it's amazing how much can be healed when you have faith. Good question. By somebody over here. Yeah. What's that? Yeah, I got my rosary. Yeah. No, not on me. No, I've still got my rosary at home. Yeah. No, but yeah, I got a rosary in prison. It's a prison rosary. It's beat down and worn down. You know what I used to do with my rosary? I would jog, and I would say the rosary, so jog. So I could do a whole rosary in like 13 minutes. So I would time myself in my lap. So I got 5 of them done. I knew I had only been out for about an hour. So, yeah. Anybody else?
Did you get, you said you met with a parole lady. Did you get actually parole the first time?
Yeah, so talk about parole. So the first time I was up for parole, I made parole the first time. It's not something that happens once. It happens from time to time. You let somebody out the first time up, but they've got to really see something in you to let that happen. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I figured I was going to probably do 15 years, which 15 years would put me at 2023.
What did you say when you said I can do it in here or out there? What was that response?
Well, she didn't say anything that day. I didn't find out that day. Like, you don't know the minute when you meet with them.
It's always like,
No. She said, thanks for meeting with me. Send the next person in. And then about 2 months later, I found out that they were parole. So it doesn't have to be, you know. In fact, the lady that interviewed me, she wasn't even one of the voters. She passed the 500 voters.
what did you do when you found out?
Cried. I cried the day. If you read my book, The Change Agent, you find out. I called my mom on a Friday, May 1st, 2015. I called my mom. And I was asking to see if they were coming to visit me that weekend. She told me that I made parole. And I started crying. I was like, oh man, and I realized it was a mistake I made because you can't cry in that place. You cry, that shows weakness. And so, basically, I telegraphed to everybody in the neighborhood that I just made parole. Because one of the guys that saw me crying got on the phone and called his mom. Said, hey, I want you to get on the internet, check out Damon and see if you made parole. And so they knew it. And the problem with people knowing you made parole is now they know that if they want to get to you, they got 2 weeks before the bus comes to pick you up to get into a fight. If they can get you into a fight, you lose your parole. There's no such thing as a legal fight in prison. Even if you're the guy defending yourself, you get into a fight, you lose your parole. You finish it out, your sentence. So for the last 2 weeks I was in prison, I didn't go to the chow hall again. I just had food that was in my locker that I ate. I went to work at the chapel. I came back. I didn't go to the backyard. I didn't even move around the prison for the last 2 weeks. So I heard the chapel. Like how do you say it? TV? Is prison how they say it is? Now, if you're saying that prison is how they say it is, like there's a bunch of violence in there, and like it's a very predatorial environment. Like prison is an environment where it's people are preyed upon or perceived to be illegal, and there's predators in there, and they devour people. It's evil. It's a dark place. Yeah, it's a very hard place to live. It's the hardest environment you don't ever want to be inside of a prison. Because it's almost like people revert back to being like animals. I mean, it's just like a living part of the brain. Very tough. Yeah, it's as hard as it gets. And all the nasty stuff you hear about that goes on inside the prison, that all happens. Hardest thing in the world, man, to get out of your head because you can't unsee and you can't unhear the stuff that you see here inside that place. First time I heard a guy getting raped, hardest thing in the world, man. This dude is screaming, help me, help me! There's no help coming, man. Because that's the thing. You gotta fight for yourself. No one's gonna fight for you. You gotta fight your fights. You got to win your fights. That's a dude that wouldn't fight his fights. And within the first couple of weeks of prison, he was getting raped and shouting, screaming, hollering. Nobody can help him. Nobody ever comes help him. Somebody else? I'm married. Yeah, I got married. May 18th, 2019, which if you remember from May 18th, 2009, was the day I got sentenced to life in prison. May 18th, 2019, 10 years to the day, I got married to my wife, Kim Romero, where she said she went from one life sentence to another. So, yeah.
Yeah, are you working on any new projects?
Yeah, I'm working on new projects. I got a book that I just wrote with a guy named Stephen Mackey called America Needs a Locker Room. And America Needs a Locker Room. Wait till this book comes out, guys. It's great. It's about a team that's dealing with struggles. And it's like, because in a locker room, the problems that we have in America right now, they don't have it on teams. You know why? Because locker rooms deal with all that. In a locker room, your success is my success. In a locker room, a mistake doesn't make you a mistake. In a locker room, the standard is the standard. In a locker room, we all have the same goal. Right now in America, we don't have a locker room. We need a place we can go to talk about things. And so Stephen Mack and I wrote a book called Americans Locker Room. John Gordon and I are working on another book. It's like the 35 ways or 50 ways to get a coffee. We don't know how many ways it's going to be. We're still writing. So we got another coffee meeting book coming out too. It's next, probably the winter of 2022. Yep.
All right, one more. We'll take one more.
Wait. Yeah. What type of food do they eat in prison? So the prison food was terrible, man. The worst thing they ever served in prison was this meal called pork noodle casserole. I don't know what's in pork noodle casserole. One time I was eating a bowl of pork noodle casserole, I found a pig's ear in it. Had a tag in it, big hairy pig ear in your food. Yeah, it definitely wasn't Chick-fil-A or Waffle House, guys. It was bad, it was tough. But pork noodle casserole, but my family, I was lucky. I had family that put money in my books, and I would go down to the commissary, and I would try to eat me. I got in really good shape there. I ate a lot of sunflower seeds, peanuts, mackerel, fish, that kind of thing, oatmeal. I got really lean. I walked out of prison about 165 pounds, just shredded. Anybody else?
If you can go back and change anything, would you?
If I could go back and change anything, would I? This is the question I get a lot. And the answer is no. Because in my faith, I believe that everything happens for a reason. And I don't control the events that happen. I can't change the past. And looking back at the past, if you alter something from your past, who knows what the rest of your life looks like. And we're not here for ourselves. None of us are here because, hey, we're just supposed to be here. We're here to serve other people. And your example is one of the things that people see. I don't think so much anymore that God goes around burning bushes. I think God sets people on fire and lets everybody see what He can do by setting someone on fire. I think right now in my life that I'm one of those people that is kind of just set on fire to show what God can do. And the reason why it's such a big story is because of all the background of it too. All the mistakes that I made get here along the way. That's why your past will refine you. Man, your past mistakes, turn those into something, turn your mess into a message. So yeah.
Hey, one quick question, and then we'll close it up. When you were at the parole hearing, and they asked you, Damon, why should we parole you right now? And I remember reading part of one of your listening, and you said, well, you can leave me in prison, and I can continue to be a coffee man in prison, or you can let me go out in the world and share my message with the world. And just tell us just a little bit about how that went down.
Yeah. So here's the thing too, y'all, is that in life, so I'll give you as an eye statement. In my life, God has never just reached out and put His hand on my head and said, hey, Damon, you're healed. No. God put people in my life. All throughout my life. This is the same thing with everybody here in this room. When I was younger, those people came in the form of teachers, there were coaches, there were people in my community who poured Arthur. As I got older, they took in the form of different people. Mr. Jackson was one of the people God put in my life. Carlos was another person God put in my life. In 2011, I got a letter in prison. It was from my favorite teacher and coach, a guy named Coach Jelly. And Coach Jelly was that teacher that I had that made learning fun. He was he was my favorite coach. And he wrote me a letter when I was in prison. He was a junior high principal in 2011. Wrote me a letter in prison. And he said, hey, Damon, it basically said, you've been to the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, but you've always been a great leader. He said, you've always been good to hit the open receiver. Talking about a little football analogy. He said, when you get out of prison, you should consider sharing your story with young people. He said, because your story can bring them hope. Once you turn it around, you can bring others hope. And in 2011, when I got that letter on September 3rd, 2011, I remember thinking that night in my bunk, maybe I could turn this around. Maybe I could use this mess and make it a message. And that's when the seed first got planted. For what I'm doing today, started with that seed, that one coach, that one teacher that reached out to me. And that seed became a little tree that's become a forest. But when I'm meeting with that lady from parole and I'm telling her, hey, I've done all this inside this prison. You've seen what I'm capable of, what I can do. Let me go out there and do this in the free world. You know, she doesn't get back and right on the spot and say, all right, yeah, you're good. We like that. I had to show her that I wanted it. And I asked her to put me in the toughest parole program they have. This in-prison therapeutic community, 6 months inside of prison of intense treatment, and then 18 months out of the street when I get out. And she even told me, she said, the parole option you want is the toughest one we have. And if you don't successfully complete it, then you have to finish your entire sentence out, the whole 65 years. I was like, give me a shot. And I asked for the toughest thing, and they gave it to me. They gave me the toughest thing because I asked for it. Sometimes in life, you have to show people you're willing. A lot of times in life, you have to show people you're willing to do the hard work to get the good stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Let's give it up for Damon one more time.